Every day you and I get bombarded with negative news. Just like the body becomes what we eat, the mind becomes what we're putting in. It is important to listen to stories that not only gives you hope, but also inspires you and uplifts you. In this podcast, we're interviewing experts who will break down the solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And I promise you, if you listen to this podcast, you will not only stay informed, but you will also feel more energy in your life. Welcome to Great.com Talks with. Hey, if you want to help protect planet Earth, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, because Great.com is donating 100% of a profit towards the most effective cause areas like climate change, protecting the rainforest, and funding climate change technology. And the topic of today is civil rights and critical thinking. To understand more about this topic, we have invited Faisal Saeed Al-Mutar, who is the founder of a movement with critical thinkers, and this movement is called Ideas Beyond Borders, and they're helping to increase the civil rights in the Middle East. So I want to say welcome, Faisal, to this interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Faisal, how dangerous is it today to be a critical thinker in the world, or specifically in the Middle East?
I think very is an understatement. There are a lot of movements that are against this way of thinking, especially movements that are authoritarian and leaders that are authoritarian, who really don't want populations that can think for themselves. And for decades, if not centuries, the authoritarians in the region have set up systems that favor loyalty over dissent, that favor authoritarianism and submission over free inquiry. And I mean, the data and the research speak for itself on how many dissidents and activists get killed, get kidnapped, get exiled, and how much of the content, that is about roughly 96%, according to some research, of online content is censored in the Middle East for either political or religious purpose. So we definitely have a lot of work ahead of us. However, what keeps me optimistic and what keeps me going really is the spirit of many of the people that I work with, and the fact that this movement is constantly expanding. And people are tired of authoritarianism, they're tired of censorship, and they're looking for an enlightened alternative. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve.
You're saying that a lot of content is being censored, and that there's you have to risk your life if you're gonna truly stand up for what you see and being a critical thinker. And you have experienced this firsthand. Tell us more about what is your experience, and how did you even start this foundation or this movement?
Yes, I mean, my journey starts from Iraq, and that's where I was born. I was born in 1991, right after the first Gulf War and the sanctions. And that was under the regime of Saddam Hussein, which I think many of your audience probably familiar with. And then I mean, in a way, I was forced into it. We used to live in a residential neighborhood. My parents, my dad is an orthopedic surgeon, my mom is a lawyer, and we were just like living as peaceful as possible, minding our own business, until our neighborhood moved from a residential neighborhood into a war zone. And it was taken over by multiple militias, multiple dark forces. So many of the houses became empty, and then it was replaced by militias, by Al Qaeda at the time, and many others. So my crazy self decided when I was 14, 15 is to become a voice against sectarianism and against division. And I started with the message of why don't everybody just get along, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of sect, and then the threats start coming in, both digitally and unfortunately ended up being physically, in which I get a death threat in my high school. So I had to leave the country in 2009, and I left to Lebanon, and I left to Malaysia afterwards. And from Malaysia, I started a blog um, that by now I think has 300,000 followers. And after a bit, I get accepted into the United States as a refugee in 2013. And a combination of the fact that I was able to get many skills and survival guilt, in which knowing that I have made it to a much safer place and I made it to a place that I can really follow my dreams to some extent, I decided to convert that and make the promise that I made when I left Iraq into really standing for these values a reality. And Ideas Beyond Borders, the organization I founded, is the fulfillment of that promise. Is that these voices, these ideas, should be stood for, should be fought for. And in 2017, with the help of a few generous donors, I was able to register this organization and get it started. And now we are almost 3 years old.
Hmm. You're talking about quite an emotional um, journey that you've been experiencing, and I can't even start to imagine what that must have been. You're saying that you continue this journey to speak up for people's civil rights, to actually be able to speak up, and you've been doing that for 3 years now in this movement that is officially a movement. Could you help me clarify to understand what is the problem that you see in the world that you're trying to solve? What would you define the problem as?
So the main problem that we are trying to solve is, which I think is, there are a lot of problems that exist in the world, but there is one thing that is within our reach and within our power, which is changing the information landscape about subjects like civil rights, critical thinking, human rights in Arabic and languages spoken in the Middle East. So when we started the organization, only 0.6% of online content is in Arabic. And there was an Arab development report by the United Nations from a decade ago that said there are more books translated to Spanish in 1 year than Arabic in 1,000 years. So most of the content, if any of, whether you go to a library and you go to, most of the content that you see in a small library in America is maybe 1,000 times more available than a biggest library in the Middle East, especially the ones that are of Arabic content. And this is not an exaggeration in terms of how much there is a transfer of knowledge from other cultures and really some of these values into Arabic. And so the main thing that really we want to solve is the content scarcity and the fact that many of these ideas are really not available in the language most people speak. And very little people, or very few people in the Middle East are bilingual or multilingual. There are some countries like Lebanon, there are countries like Tunisia and some others in North Africa that speak multiple languages, but a majority of people in the region do not speak a language other than Arabic or Kurdish or Farsi. So our goal is to really make inaccessible information accessible. And that is the mission of the organization.
So authoritarian regimes are suppressing the information flow, and there you would, how would you even start to get access to provide this information? How does that work?
So from our end, I mean, we're in a way a platform. So we have a digital library that we started called House of Wisdom 2.0, which is named after a building from the 13th century in Baghdad, where I come from, that used to translate works of science and knowledge into Arabic. And so we built up this kind of digital repository of all the content that we translate, whether it's in multimedia, books, articles, and videos and infographics. And we equip our team, which is about 120 people, work with us in a full-time, part-time capacity, with both digital security training and VPNs, which is a virtual private network, in which they can circumvent the censorship that exists in their countries. So we have, in a way, digital infrastructure that we have built internally with the help of some partners that are experts in the subject of digital security, that make sure that our staff are trained of how to avoid being tracked, how to make sure that they can access the websites that are banned in their countries. How can they make sure that they don't leave history in their computers or in their phones, that if one day they get caught by a government or by a militia, that they will not be able to see many of the stuff that they are working on. So I mean, this is a constant struggle. So I don't want to send the message that we've figured it out because we have not figured it out. It's something that we always have to really adapt to. Every quarter, there is new laws of censorship in one country, and there is laws about banning this book or banning this organization or banning this activist or killing this activist, as unfortunately happened over the past couple of months in Iraq. So we're constantly trying to adapt to the new realities that exist in each country that we work in. And hopefully is, other than really making knowledge about critical thinking and all of this stuff accessible, but also equipping the population with digital literacy skills to the way that this becomes more common knowledge and not just IBB's internal knowledge, but rather making it accessible to as many people as possible, and really make sure that these authoritarian regimes don't have an absolute control on the flow of information.
So you're saying that it is a constant struggle to, you have not figured it out, but at least you're working on to try to be a counterpart of this strong governmental kind of control of what information comes in.
Yes.
Does this put you guys in danger? Are you still getting threats even though you're not living in Iraq anymore? You're living in the United States, or does that even matter in this?
I mean, on a personal level, yes, of course, like me shifting locations have definitely helped. However, my staff and most of which live in the Middle East are in constant threat, whether directly or indirectly. So, I mean, just a few months ago, we got an email from a translator who worked with us, is that, I'm sorry, I cannot continue working with you guys. I feel like I'm being tracked, and this might really damage me in the long run, and not just damage me personally, but rather my family too. Because in some of these authoritarian regimes, is that they don't only just punish the person, they try to, quote unquote, make an example of that person. So by punishing their family, by getting them not to have a career, stopping them from pursuing further education, and that is on the peaceful end of things. I mean, in some cases, end up people in prison, etc. So the staff that I currently work with are in constant threat, directly or indirectly, and the goal is I mean, however, is one of the reasons why many people join us and many people be part of our movement is the fact is that they are sick of that authoritarianism, and they do want to make change. I mean, sometimes I am surprised of the spirit that many of these people have, despite all of this kind of attempts to censor them, in which they reached a level in which, okay, I mean, we have to fight for something. We have to fight that. It's in a way, and that's how I reached the conclusion when I became, to some extent, an outspoken activist when I was 15, in which when I was living under these militias, is all the choices I have is that, okay, you either submit to us or we kill you. And so there is no middle ground. Like what middle ground I can reach out with uh, with all these folks. So I decided to be outspoken, knowing at the time I didn't know a lot of the consequences, but I just continued doing, and that's kind of the spirit that many of the team that I work with have.
And also the organization has been awarded quite. Uh, we talked about this before. You have got an award from Barack Obama about the work that you're doing, and that, I guess, is a receipt for how truly courageous the work that you are doing is. Could you just give us a short? What does that mean that you got an award from Barack Obama about this?
Yeah, so I mean, in the United States, there is an award called the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, and these are awards that are given to people who donate their time and donate their skills who to help a specific cause. And in my cause, it is education and really making education accessible. And I, out of nowhere, one of the organizations that I volunteered a lot of my time with, called Mala, and they told me that I'm on the list to receive an award from the president, and it was the gold award, the gold. So they have like silver and I think gold, and so I got the gold award for really the time that I have spent and volunteered for really broadly the cause of education. So the award says we award this to Faisal Mutar for his dedication or his commitment to education. So that is in 2015, and that was previous to IBB. And recently, we received an award as an organization from an organization called Elevate Prize, which is affiliated with MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and that is recent, and it is mainly about our work in translation and making education accessible. So we have been recipient of some awards. We are hopefully building a relationship with Wikipedia and become a major partner of Wikipedia soon, mainly Wikipedia that's focused on the Middle East. And our goal is to really to be as known and really accepted by the mainstream, because this is an amazingly important cause. Maybe personally, of course, important, but creating informed populations, creating populations can think for itself, will create a great environment for prosperity, great environment for peace, and that many of the people in the Middle East have not seen before. So that's the goal. And excuse me, there's like dogs around, so maybe I should just mute myself a bit. But please.
It makes it more alive if you can hear some nature and animals around. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for that clarification or for understanding the award part and the future, I guess, with Wikipedia. So help me here to understand why do you think people in the West world, in America, Europe, should care about um, the Arabic kind of Middle East world would get more information?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always said is like the Middle East is the opposite of Las Vegas. What happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. So the Middle East is I mean, amazing. I mean, as a location, it is really the center of the world and the birthplace of many of the beliefs and ideas that even people in the West adhere to. And it is a place that is very connected to a lot of the world, and it's a very significant population, about 400 million plus people. And so from like a selfish geopolitical standpoint, is the conflicts of the Middle East do not stay in the Middle East. If we have seen from the Syrian refugee crisis, as we have seen from the conflicts that exist in many parts of the region, have really ended beyond them. And from a non-selfish standpoint, is that there are all these individuals, especially those who are affiliated with IBB, but also on a broader scale, who really want to live in the same world that many people here in the West want to live in. And they need a fair chance in life. I mean, all of what they have seen, if you are talking to somebody who was like born in the 60s, let's say, right? And all what they have seen is war. Like if you were born in Iraq, by the time you are 20, you have seen the Iraq-Iran war. By the time you are 30, you have seen the Gulf War. By the time you're 40, you have seen the other Gulf War. And the time you're 50, you see the Civil War.
Mm.
And this is all what you have experienced your entire life. And we need to find an alternative to that. This has to end.
We are going towards the end in this interview, and I want to ask you, what would you want people to do after hearing this interview?
I think, I mean, really, we need a lot of help in both skill sets and financial. And skill sets is that, I mean, we have a lot of things to figure out, from digital security, from really understanding the landscape of information. So anybody who has the skill sets that can help with that will be great. And also these efforts, and we have a team that is all over the region that really needs both emotional and financial support. I mean, one of the things I generally ask for in speeches is that if you really think this is an important cause, if you just send us a message to the translators who live in these authoritarian censored societies and tell them that you care. Because many of these people are not motivated by purely financial gains. They are really risking their lives, and they live in destroyed areas. And for them, a message of hope, of people caring about what they think and what they do will go a long way. So for those who are listening and think that this cause is important, drop us a message and thank the heroes who are working their lives and risking their lives to make information and education accessible to everybody.
Where would you want people to connect towards? The website is called ideasbeyondborders.org. Is there a specific place you want people to go to?
Yes, the website's ideasbeyondborders.org. And also, if people are interested to see our content and how we spread that, there is a tab called video samples, and they can see like how our content flow is and what we really do. And yeah, there's a contact tab and a donate tab that people can access on the website too.
I watched one of the videos already about critical thinking. It is high quality in that video. I really appreciate it kind of talks about why it's important to be critical thinking. I would like to end this interview by asking you the last question here. Is there anything extra important that you would like for more people to understand? What would that be?
I mean, I think, we live in the age of information. We also live in the age of misinformation. And I think it is one thing to be literate, but one thing to be media literate. So I ask everybody to spend more time understanding how to read the news, not just reading the news. And this is I think the issue of the century is that, especially the authoritarian regimes that we work on in the region are spreading a lot of misinformation, both internally and externally. And I I think critical thinking is not, it's not just a badge to have, but rather as a lifestyle and a framework for us to understand the world around us. So I think this would be a message that I have for everybody, not just in the Middle East, but be informed and spend more time knowing how to think, not what to think.